guys, Boardroom Savages here, and we're back with another one. So, today, I have one of my favorite people back in the studio with me, Lex Kelly.
Listen to you. Give y'all the warm and fuzzies.
Let me tell you,
favorite people.
We're about to have a whole healing discussion with Lex Kelly. And he's going to give us some gems. He's going to give us some, takeaways that we can implement in our daily life. And then guess what? We just going to talk about some shit that should not be talked about at Thanksgiving. It should be talked before Thanksgiving, all right? And all your holidays where your family start acting up. Start having these discussions on a random Sunday. And look, you want to heal. You want to grow through the go-through. Very, very important. So, welcome back.
Thank you. And look, you over here giving me these giving them these expectations. Listen, I'm gonna tell you what I can do. I can be as honest and truthful as possible.
That's all we need.
That's it.
That's all they need to hear.
I could just speak on me. I could speak on what I feel. I could speak on what I experience within myself, and then hopefully other people can resonate with it. But man, we got billions and billions of beautiful light beings walking around this earth, and each one of us is very unique. So anything outside of my own personal authentic experience is basically telling other people what to do. And I don't do it. Yeah. So what up?
What's up? So, I have a list. Checking it twice.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a little naughty, and I've been a little nice.
Yeah, duality.
I've been working on it. 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 But having you back is a wonderful feeling because I have somebody that can give me that can give me that equal give and take where I can get information, give information, and coming into the new year, folks, make promises to themselves. They make resolutions, or I want to do things different in 2024. I want to do things different in the next year.
Right.
And one of the things that I learned last year, and just recapping, is it's a lot of work to be a better fucking person, man. Like, golly, it takes a lot not to, hit that shadow side. It really does. Like, you really got to work at. It's easy to be bad. Old folks will tell you that. It's easy to go down the wrong path. It's easy to be bad. To be good, like, I want to talk about shadow work because it's you always say buzzwords. It's trending, but it's actually a real process that you go through to be at a higher frequency, at a higher vibe. I'm to the point where, I was telling my guy DW, the fucks I get is about this big now. Like, it used to be so consuming that it just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's not that I don't care. It's like you start to learn as you learn yourself and you go through that shadow process. It's more like you release.
Yes.
And
you
you surrender.
Right.
So let's talk about shadow work. Let's get there. So, first off, explain to the people, what is shadow work?
All right. So, it is a bit of a buzzword, but for most people, when they talk about shadow work, it's the ability to look at the things that are following you in your life and how they actually got there through your own self-reflection. Because if you think about a shadow, your shadow is always going to do what you do. And depending on how the light hits you, your shadow will move. But it never goes away. But there's times where you could possibly turn yourself in a way to where in your perfect alignment with your shadow, it looks like you might not have one, depending on where the light's hitting you.
If you go out, it's right there.
It's right there, and it's behind you. You think it's not there, but it's behind you. You know what I mean? So, and if you're looking back at it, you're not seeing what's in front of you. You know what I mean? So it's like shadow work is the ability to be able to recognize that you're manifesting always, no matter what. And when you're having your life experiences, being able to reconcile with that understanding and awareness that you got to take full accountability for what you're manifesting. And on a biological level, that's just you balancing out your forebrain and your executive centers and your amygdala. It's just on a neurological level, that's you switching back between your creativity and your fight or flight. And when you balance those two spaces, when you receive information and you receive it from all your different senses, and it goes up your spinal cord or your brain stem, and it gets to your thalamus, which basically is like which way am I going to send this stimuli? Does this reference something that is beneficial to me? If does it offer me safety? Do I find it to be great? Or do I find this to be threatening, fight or flight? And then your nervous system, we talked about last time, responds to that. So shadow work is consciously being able to balance out information that your body receives and not associate it one-sided, which is duality, which is, how the whole...
Oh, we're going to get back to duality. We need to go back to accountability.
Okay.
In your manifestation.
Right.
So even in your shadow side, you got to be held accountable for that.
We are, no matter what.
Right. But I think that what you just said was very profound to me, because it's like when things are going wrong, you tend to blame, well, this person didn't do this, and this is why I couldn't do that. Or this happened, and this is why I couldn't do this. And then it's like you're always putting the blame when it's like, no, I'm accountable for myself. Right. I am accountable.
Right.
Even your thoughts, you have to be accountable for.
Right.
Meaning, like, I thought negative, and therefore negative came in my reality. And I'm saying, like, side note. I gotta put this out there. When you discuss spiritual awakening, spirituality, religion, it is not sunshine and roses. Okay? No, I'm not walking around kumbaya 24 hours a day. That's not what this is. Okay?
What is it?
For me, it's finding the kumbaya when I could have kicked you in your face. Like
the extreme.
That's for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm going to let her go ahead because she don't even know. It's not going to pan out the way she think in her head is going to pan out. Okay. Or he, or the situation, and then also maybe looking at myself and being like, well, you did cut her off in traffic. Like, you did deserve the middle finger. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta constantly
deal with your
ego, deal with yourself, and it is so important that people don't think that, oh, I'm so enlightened that it's all positivity from here. Your shadow side will be triggered every single day. It's like Lex said, it's the response. And also it's taking accountability, because there are times where I have to sit back and be like, well, you did that. And whatever I did do, I got everything that came with it. Right. And I think that was so important when you said accountability and manifestation, because when we hear the word manifestation, we think money, we think love, positivity.
Part of it.
We think of all the great stuff of manifestation, and totally leave out, like you said, duality. There's the other side of manifestation where it's like everything can go wrong. Right. And negativity.
Yeah, so let's bust down a couple of things. So, labeling. We'll start first with accountability, and you are 100% correct. Like, all accountability is you being able to keep track of your intentions, previous.
I like that. Keeping track of your intentions,
your previous intentions, because when you are intentional about how you interact with yourself in the world, and you understand that you're constantly learning through your senses, then anything you receive back is conscious information. Like, now I can use that to set a new intention with more information than last. So if I get something back that triggers my nervous system, then that also lets me know, oh, why did it trigger my nervous system? Why am I attached to that? Like, what is it about what that person did in their own life around me, unless it's like physical contact, but what that person did in their own life around me, why is it that my earth got stimulated? Like, what did that energy frequency, how did it resonate with me? Like, when I received that, and then it went through, we talked about how these things goes back up to the brain. Our social conditioning, our thoughts, our ideas, our beliefs, how we chant to ourselves every day. You spoke a little bit earlier about your internal thoughts. That's just chants. That's prayer. So the more you say the same thing over and over and over again, your brain is going to recognize it to be true, and then you will paint the picture of your life through those chants. That's why it's very important to watch yourself talk. Accountability. Hey, what was my previous intention? What did I want to manifest? And how did it turn out differently from the fantasy in my head? So now that I recognize what really happened, because the fantasy in my head doesn't include you. You see what I'm saying? Like, I can, on my way here, I can fantasize about how this podcast is going to go. But I don't actually know for sure until I get here and include you.
Right, because I could be on some crazy and
be,
everybody else
you
could be
on
on
you.
Right, and it's like, okay, now what you gonna do?
Right.
Are you gonna be moved or are you gonna be grounded and just be like, well, I'll make the best of what I came here to do?
Right. Which is, so now it boils back to mirror work. When you do your mirror work and you understand that you are to be intentional about your manifestation, control yourself, not so much control others, but really understand how you choose to interact with yourself around other people. However you decide to show up in this podcast, I've already set an intention about how I'm going to be on a consistent basis. I'm going to be in love. I'm going to be in honesty. I even set the intention before I even started.
Right.
The moment the cameras came on, I set the intentions like, listen, you put out an expectation. There's a good chance I'm going to disappoint you. But the one thing I will tell you is I'm going to be honest and open and vulnerable and express to you what I've learned about myself and my journey. However it resonates with you, it has nothing to do with me. I can be as mindful as possible. That's why I set my intention.
You take what applies.
Yeah, whatever resonates.
And let the rest fly. So if it's one, I told you he be having gyms, y'all. So you take your gym, you take your nugget, and you run back to your space, and you meditate on that. And the rest of it, you probably just shut the podcast off. You don't need to listen to nothing.
This episode of Boardroom Savages is brought to you by the Joe Reyes Insurance Agency at Country Financial. As you work through life, you may find you need to protect what you value most. Whether that's your business, home, auto, or loved ones, Joe Reyes at Country Financial has a solution for you. As a Country Financial insurance agent, Joe Reyes is prepared to help you with insurance options to protect what and who you love. Visit joedoesinsurance.com or call 770-967-3190.
It be like that sometimes.
Or
like, share, subscribe.
Yeah, like, share, subscribe, all that. Yeah, but or you can take in things that don't resonate with you, which we do anyway in life, and we say, I've never heard life expressed that way before. Now I know that life is different for me. People are different for me. I don't have to be so self-centered now, because I'm aware that other people express their life in their own unique way, and every person that I interact with, I'm watching a unique expression of nature. And so
that goes back to the shadow work, though.
That's what we talk about.
That goes right.
Yeah,
it goes back.
You learn about all this. You learn about giving yourself the space to be human in your shadow work. Like, shadow work is about, I'm unique. I'm a blessing. I am a miracle walking. Like, I'm here, but billions of other versions of me never made it through that birthing process, that creative process.
Look, shout out to my daddy. I could have been a
napkin.
Right.
Mommy and daddy, that unification. A napkin on a sock or something.
Right.
Toilet, wherever.
Right. This could have went somewhere else. I beat the odds. So first, be grateful you got here.
Right, and that's the key. And that's shadow work. It's gratitude. It's being able to sit back and finally get to a place to say, I am so grateful. Shout out to Baba Robert Pugh and the Sweat Lodge and the Guru. I'm so grateful to be here. You know, I'm so grateful to be having these wonderful human experiences. However they may come, I get to choose how I'm going to define whatever comes into my mind. And I also understand that through my shadow work is that there's duality involved here. Like, there's my conscious mind, and then there's also my subconscious mind. And as I bring in information, and as I train myself to behave and act and do, and I get very proficient in that space, when I run into new information that stimulates something different, I now have to reconcile with another choice. Do I want to release and let go all the things that I trained myself to be tied into, my nervous system be tied into yesterday? Or do I want to release that? I mean, do I want to release it, or do I want to retain it and just say I'm going to block anything new coming in? And so shadow work is understanding, like, you have a moment-to-moment choice to how you want to experience yourself moving forward. Do I want to be more of the same, or do I want to evolve? And wherever there's resistance, I can say, why am I scared of a new version of myself? What do I think is going to happen to me if I decide to release and let go? What do I think my next reality is? How have I trained myself to believe that my next moment is going to be oh so detrimental and the whole world is going to come crumbling down if I choose to just express myself a bit different today. If I choose happiness rather than sadness.
Happiness is a choice. Like,
everything.
Like, happiness is a choice. Like, even love is a choice. Like, you know, oh, I love you. No, love is really a choice, because in my experience, whether that person acts the way you want them to act or you feel they should act, are you still gonna love that person?
Hold on, back up for a sec. How self-centered is that?
Right.
I want another person to act. Basically, we become, in that moment, and it comes from something else, it's the macro of the micro. In that moment, we become so self-aggrandized, so lower vibrational. We're in a God space, but we're in another space, we're on the other spectrum, that we can sit back and look at another person and say, I want you to forfeit. I want you to self-sacrifice. We spoke about that last time. I want you to self-sacrifice in the name of me. I want you to completely relinquish your God-given right to express yourself in your own unique way, just to make me feel comfortable with myself, because my nervous system, I've trained it through my own internal thoughts and through however I was taught to receive information, that this is the only way life should be expressed. My way or the highway. And if you express anything different outside of me, how dare you?
And I take my love back.
And it was never love in the first place.
Conditional.
Because love is creativity. Love is releasing. Love is opening. Love is porous. Love is Osho saying, when you see a flower and you like the way it smells and you like the way it looks and you like the way it makes it feel, don't pick it, because it ceases to be the thing that you love. So when you love a person, you leave them alone.
I'm laughing, but yes, because there are good and goodbyes. Like, if you love a person, you let them be.
Yeah, but
be who you are.
But they become more magnetic to you. Come on, you ever been? How have you felt when you've been around somebody who lets you be authentically you?
Comfortable.
Man, you always around them. You calling them, you checking up on them. How you doing? Like, you wake up in the morning and you, like, your brain says, "Hey, let's go see what this person that lets be me is doing." So. It doesn't. There's not even a goodbye.
It's such a comfort. It's such
an attraction.
It's like,
it's an attraction.
I don't have to put a mask on. I don't have to. I could just be me. I'm goofy as hell. Like, and they okay with? Okay, she goofy as shit. Like, that'll be, you know, this.
Are they goofy with you? It's like, oh dang, I see how expressive you are authentically. I have not built that muscle yet, so I'm gonna work out with you for a bit so I can build that muscle. Now I get to learn how to be a little bit more of an extrovert and goofy and lighthearted, because I've allowed myself to be around somebody who's different from me, and now Tiffany has evolved me. I become more love. I become more open. I become more expansive. You know, there's more petals. I'm flowering more because I'm allowing other things to nurture me, to pollinate me.
I'm so happy he came back out.
I'm just here being.
This is what we supposed to do. This is the energy that we were supposed to create. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing right now. Because
absolutely,
what from the time my spiritual awakening happened all the way to this year, it had started, I want to say in 2018.
Okay.
It did like this, but I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what was happening at all.
What was the season?
It was going into spring.
Okay, going into spring.
It was going into spring, and I didn't know what it was, so it was like I tucked it in. I went back to sleep because I was like, yeah, this is not happening right now, you know. And then COVID happened, and it started knocking at the door like, okay, we're not going back to sleep. And then
you're talking about a feeling that you got is what was knocking on the door?
It was the feeling. It was the feeling of like I knew I needed to change.
So it was like an unease.
It was like, you better change. You better change. And it wasn't that I was doing something crazy. I wasn't out here, you know, kidnapping grandmas and stuff like that. But it was just more like, I am unhappy with the way my life is going, and I have to, accountability. I have to figure this out and do something different to get to where I really want to be in a mind state and reprogram my mindset.
Yeah, you were non-creative.
So it was just like, okay, COVID happened, and then everybody's in the house, and I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, oh, we're not doing this.
Right.
And then, my mom had taken ill, and I had to go deal with that. And then that's when the light bulb, put it this way. You know how you go in a house and you cut on one light, but you may not cut on all of the lights in the house because it's like, well, you walk in, the garage door lights automatically come on. So you ain't got to worry about those lights, right? You come in, the kitchen light, it's always been there. Flick that open. Now you're heading upstairs, you might cut that light on. You're used to that light. But when you go in the basement, right, going back to shadow work, you might have to fill in that wall to see where, for me, because I don't go in the basement that often. And then when you click that one light on, now you're looking for all the other lights in the basement because you're not necessarily in there.
That's a beautiful analogy. Okay.
And going through the basement is like, oh shoot, I forgot the light switch is over here. Let me flick that on. Okay. Now the basement lit up. You're like, this shit is junky and messy, and then you got a choice. Either we gonna clean it out, or we gonna
get what we need and get back upstairs. I'll deal with that later. Because it's too overwhelming for me right now.
Right. Or you make a plan and be like, let me get what I need now.
Right.
I'm gonna come back to that.
Right.
And we're gonna do this area first.
Right.
We're gonna do this area first. Second. And
it
this area third. It doesn't, right? But we're gonna unpack a little bit at a time to clear this out because it looked crazy down here.
Yeah.
So for me, when my mom was sick, and I'm very more so open about it now because it's a part of my healing process. Yes. And like Lex said, I'm not no licensed therapist. I'm just a woman that been through some shit.
We all are.
And I'm just sharing with you what I went through in hopes that it can help the next person in my story. It was a point in my life I wouldn't even claim my mother.
Wow.
Because of the trauma that I went through as a child. And never knew anything about inner child healing. All of these terms I'm kicking to you now. I didn't know about none of that. But when she fell ill during COVID time, I had a choice. And the choice was go help her, or, well, she did this to me as a child, she did that to me as a child. I ain't got to go help her. And I could leave her there. But the universe, the divine, God, he a trickster in his own. I'm going to tell you, the spiritual awakening, the banging on the door to say, go to the basement, I would wake up and I would hear this song by Frankie Beverly and Maze. And dude, in the ear, yes. Happy feelings.
Happy feelings in the air. Man, listen, that's my joint.
That's the Saturday morning. You had to clean your house, do your chores.
But the lyrics be hitting.
And it kept playing in my ear. Like, now, this song's not playing at all. Okay? The radio's not on. No iPod. None. It's in my. I keep hearing the song when it shut off. And Lex, I kid you not, I went to sleep, and I grew up in Harlem, around Central Park West, with a big lake. And every time I went to sleep, I would dream of the lake. I used to do my runs around that lake. And it was just more like I would hear the song, dream about the lake. Hear the song, dream about the lake. This is before I knew my mother was sick. And my sister called. She was like, look, I know you don't want to hear this. I think something's wrong with mommy. And I'm like,
I got to reconcile
with this.
Golly.
True story. Next, I go home. I go back to Harlem. I walked in my mother's apartment. And she was like, I want to come live with you. I promise I'll behave in the most childlike manner. Just let me take my cat. I knew right then something was wrong because she don't like me like that. So it was like, what the fuck? Hold up. And then it started. The awakening. And And mind you, when you awakening, you still kind of like that,
Yeah.
and then it's like, okay, I'm up, wait, I'm up.
I'm
wait.
up, Biggie, I'm up. No,
right.
puff, I'm up.
I'm up, right.
What time the flight?
I'm up, okay.
Yo, big.
I'm like, something's wrong, but okay.
Right.
And in that moment, my mother, the conditions that she was living in, and it wasn't, dirty or anything. She just hoarded a lot of stuff.
Right.
And she wasn't herself. And when we were going through the process trying to figure out what was wrong with her, it came out that she had Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's, dementia.
Yeah.
And y'all, that's a whole nother story, because her going through the process and not accepting what was happening to her, that's another story. We will do another healing session with Lex Kelly. But what happened during that time, and this goes into the shadow work, was as I was cleaning out my mother's apartment to bring her here to Georgia.
This episode of Boardroom Savages is brought to you by Thrive Mortgage, the Reggie Graham team, in MLS number 240-34227. Are you looking to finance a home or commercial property, maybe refinance an existing mortgage? Contact the Reggie Graham team to discuss a mortgage solution to fit your needs. All loans are subject to underwriting and investor approval. Other restrictions may apply. This is not an offer of credit or a commitment to lend. Guidelines are subject to change. Visit thereggiegrahamteam.com or call 678-968-0444.
I essentially was unpacking all my childhood trauma through old photos, through letters, through family members I hadn't spoken to in years who were calling with concern. And I went through it. And I tell people, that are close to me, I buried my mother then. Like, she's here physically, right, and I care for her, and I do for her, but that estrangement, that trauma, that phase in which I looked at her through, that lens got buried there. Because it was at that point where my shadow side was, she ain't give you this, she ain't give you that. And then my God side, my God energy was like, honor thy mother and thy father.
Yo.
For your days shall be long. He ain't never said in the Bible like them. He never said like her. He never told me you had to like it. You had to do what was right. And in doing what was right, I began to learn about the trauma that my mother went through.
Yes.
And realized, it got to stop here.
Yeah.
Now, that goes into generational curses. We ain't going to get there yet.
Yes.
And it was like, oh, shoot. She was going through all of these things. Mm-hmm. And she had me at 17. Well, she didn't know herself. She didn't know who she was. And then we're here. She's extremely young to have this condition that she has. My mama is extremely young. And it's like, as we cleaned up her apartment, we cleaned up her. And we decluttered her. Me and my sister. I didn't do it alone. Me and my sister.
Was y'all able to heal together?
To a certain extent, yeah. We had to face a lot. Yeah. See, my sister, she's doing whatever she's doing, so I can't speak on, how much she healed. But I can tell you, for me, it was almost like everything had to change in my life, because my shadow side was like, this is why you respond this way. Yeah. This happened as a child. I had to face terrible things from my childhood.
Yes.
Going through her life and cleaning up her life to bring her here to Georgia to help her do something. Right. And it was scary. It was a lot of tears. It was a lot of anger. It was a lot of resentment. But then it was a lot of releasing. Yeah. And I say this all the time. I had a good friend that recommended the book "You Are Not Your Trauma," and the book basically explained how women hold trauma in their womb.
Yes.
So that means when you giving birth, you're passing that trauma, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, because at that point, it's not so much holding your womb; it's in your DNA.
Right.
Like, it's literally in all of our DNA. Men and women, and we all gonna hold our relationship issues and our gut area and that sacral area.
So, for me, I started like digging more in. I started getting into meditation. I started getting into cultivating my spiritual practices. In my shadow work, I had to go backwards. I went past my mother. I went to my grandmother. My grandmother was an alcoholic. Right? So
it starts unraveling. You start seeing like,
when you start talking to family members you haven't heard in a while, because now, you know, what brings family together? Death, funerals, something traumatic, right? Yeah. Her illness. I started asking questions. And it was in those questions where it was like, I could sum it up for you right now. My grandmother was an alcoholic. She had a child that died early. Because we, as a community, don't talk about therapy, we don't talk about feelings, we have what is known as coping mechanisms. Those coping mechanisms can be positive or they can be freaking destructive. Well, in her era, alcohol was her coping mechanism and it was extremely destructive. And because of her and her alcoholism, her children picked it up as a coping mechanism because it was a learned behavior from my grandmother. Now, because my mother was a teenager, to have my grandmother, who is extremely beautiful at the time, okay? Y'all talk about these video chicks, they ain't had nothing on my grandma Connie, okay? She was beauty queen before Vanessa Williams was Vanessa Williams. My grandmother was that chick.
She was stimulating a lot of energy.
But she would get drunk and my mother would have to pick her up out the gutter and take her upstairs. And my mom grew up and my grandmother lived until she went into a home at High Ridge Garden. Shout out to Cardi B, right? And University Ave. And imagine a teenage girl having to pick her mother up out the gutter in front of everybody and take her upstairs and put her to bed.
Yes.
And have to do this over and over again. Now you get pregnant, have your child. What can you pass down? It was in that moment.
Outside of your own lived experience.
Right. It was in that moment where I learned forgiveness in my shadow side.
Yes.
She was only able to do
what she could.
What she could.
Yeah. We're all doing Deepak Chopra says we're all doing the best that we can from the level of awareness that we are in the moment. That's it. And what you're hitting on is so beautiful because, and I appreciate you for sharing that.
It ain't easy.
Yeah,
I'm fighting back tears, y'all. Like,
man, the vulnerability and the authenticity, I was knee deep in it. You know what I mean? And I followed you through that because, like, even myself, I had to sit back and reconcile with my idea and fantasy of what my childhood should be. Now I gotta be honest, man. Shout out to my mama, and shout out to where I'm from. Because growing up in the '80s in a small town called Cumberland, Maryland, like, it was very easy just to be okay. You know what I mean? Like, we was we're still a poor city. But during the '80s and the '90s, it was easy for me to be okay as a kid. And my mother did a great job at not spewing too much, imbalance on me. So I had a pretty decent childhood outside of some things. Outside of understanding women. That's a whole nother story. But I did have to sit back and say, which it sounds like this happened for you as well, it's the releasing of the fantasy that we have of what our life should have been. And no, in your case, because I have to bury my mother right now, I will never get what idea and fantasy of an apology or do-over or whatever it may be that she owes me. I'll never get that because that is not my reality. My reality is what already happened, who my mother was at that time, her level of awareness, her understanding of herself, her not having any of this information that we're talking about, how that is represented and how a person deals with themselves on a nervous level outwardly, how that frequency and vibration resonates to somebody else who can't put it in context, how you received it as a child, then was like, oh snap, this is uncomfortable. I don't know what else to do with this uncomfortability. Why am I feeling this way? I'm looking at other people. I only see the upsides, not the downsides. So I start fantasizing about their life. I now get mad at mom for not giving me that fantasy. I hold on to it for a lifetime. Now that's building up disease and resentment through stress, cortisol levels, and the whole nine. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not releasing. You're getting blockages. You can't express yourself well in relationships. You're doing all this weird stuff to fill a void, like promiscuity without intention, overeating, just dopamine spike, which is what happened with your mother's mother. And it's like, again, if we don't start learning about how we operate as human beings, like our biology, and then taking that into consideration when it comes to how we see the world, we're not able to sit back and actually see our thoughts. Like when you talked about meditation, you saw your thoughts and gently let them go by, rather than being your thought and trying to reenact it out in the world. You just said, I'm hurt.
Yeah, and it was huge. It was like, this some bullshit, because she was estranged for so long. My spiritual mother that had passed on, I want to say 2 years, the year before. I consider her more so my mom. And with my mother being estranged, we hadn't spoken for 3+ years. So in my head, it was like, either you're going to call me to say she ain't here no more. That's it. And one of the things I used to say with my mom was, she never thought she was going to get old. She don't think she ever need nobody.
Right.
And she functioned and operated her life like, I ain't going to need you. I don't need nobody. I'm independent.
Your mom around between 60 and 70?
Early 60s, yeah. And she...
that was common for that.
Yeah, I don't need you. I got this. I'm good.
I'm good.
Not even looking at...
What is it going to look like down the road? Like, you're not manifesting
You're not looking at your health could decline. None of these things. So when we got there, it was like I had to reconcile with myself. I had to really look in the mirror and be like, okay, Tiff, you're 100 pounds overweight. You're not eating because you're hungry. You emotionally eating. That's another discussion for another day, right? That's how I manifest it, right? Okay, like, yeah, that's a whole thing. That's a whole thing, right? And then also looking at the relationships I had around me, but more importantly, the relationship I had with myself. See, I knew myself, but I didn't know thyself.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I knew my triggers, but I didn't know how to maneuver around my triggers. Like,
you were just suppressing them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to just, let me take this. And I was, in always being self-employed, I have been fortunate to understand and be able to use compartmentalization.
Right.
So I know how to compartmentalize stuff, but what happens when the shelf gets too heavy with all the boxes?
Right. And
then they fall down.
Right.
So learning how to...
Great analogy again.
Let me take this off the shelf.
Right.
This is a Pilot G210 pen. Okay. It's normally here when it's full. It's here. I don't have to replace the pen right now, but I know when I keep writing, at some point, it's either I'm going to have to replace it or put a refill in it. But I'm going to use it, and then I'm going to put this back, and I'm going to put this back on the shelf. And that's how I went through my shadow work. I started looking at anxiety, and I started looking at jealousy, envy, competitiveness. Yeah. I started looking at all of my
ego.
All of the egos was just dying. The ego was like this. Wait, no.
I'm melting.
Right?
Man.
The comparison.
It be kicking and screaming, don't it?
The self-centered.
Yeah.
The narcissistic tendencies. No, let me go. Let me wait. Right? Because you try to hold on to these masks because it's familiar.
Yes.
Familiarity breeds contempt. It's comfortable. But when that mask starts cracking, you begin to look at it and be like, roses do smell like poo. My shit stink too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that humility.
Like.
Yeah. Releasing and letting go is very vulnerable.
Oh,
it's extremely vulnerable because you are letting go of everything that you've built as a defense mechanism or as a protection, because you think, like we spoke about earlier, that if I live life any differently, that somehow something's going to happen that I'm not going to survive from. Not understanding is that you're going to survive no matter what. Like, if you're not going to be here, you're not going to be here. It ain't going to be based off of, what you thinking is right or wrong and who should do this and who should do that. Is like all that judgment and shame, that's on you.
Who? Judgment and shame, also releasing.
Yeah, you got to release that.
You got to release.
Because then you can't be authentic. And this then goes back to relationship. We can't be completely authentic and honest and truthful. And we spoke about earlier, and I said, if you're around somebody that just lets you be you, don't you want to be around them? So you become magnetic to individuals who love you.
This episode of Boardroom Savages is brought to you by the Joe Reyes Insurance Agency at Country Financial. As you work through life, you may find you need to protect what you value most. Whether that's your business, home, auto, or loved ones, Joe Reyes at Country Financial has a solution for you. As a Country Financial insurance agent, Joe Reyes is prepared to help you with insurance options to protect what and who you love. Visit joedoesinsurance.com or call 770-967-3190.
For you, just you being who you are. And now that authenticity allows time and space for you to go and do work because you've created a sacred space with connection with somebody else. And sometimes you got to do that on your own because you may not be able to protect somebody from you while you're going through your own shit. Like you still projecting and spewing and pointing fingers and being angry and being triggered and set off, but yet you want somebody to go through it with you. But you got to understand where they are in their process. They may not have the space to be able to deal with your heaviness. So sometimes you just got to go, through your shadow work on your own. So that way, and it's beautiful if you got somebody who has the capacity and the stamina and they've done the work in their own life.
That's important that you said that they did the work in their own life because
that they can be balanced.
That's how those codependent relationships, my opinion, it comes about because you want this person to go through it with you, and they're not even equipped.
They're not healers.
They're not healers.
Listen,
they're not equipped to do that.
Yeah, and then you're mad at it. And this is a bit of my personal experience. And I'm being honest. Like I've been in this game. I've been in the health and wellness game pretty much my whole life. Like since like 16 to 17 years old. Maybe earlier than that. Way earlier than that actually. But really being intentional about being healthy and well, it started like coming out of high school. My discipline began at like 16 and 17. And so, even with all of those years of experience and gained wisdom, I still ran into a brick wall when it came down to like my most intimate relationships and how they stimulate those deep-rooted seeds of not allowing yourself to be you. That judgment and that shame and that fear about what the outcome is going to be if you just allow yourself just to be. And just to, like, I like this, I like that. I don't like this, I don't like that. It's okay that you don't like what I like. We just may not be for each other at this specific time and place. I don't have such an attachment to an idea that I got to be in a relation with somebody to fill a void. That I can't recognize that we may not be good together because authentically, there's nothing that magnetizes us on that level that want to do it day by day by day, every single day. We have some people that we can be around each other every single day. And there's something and we're so open and honest with each other that it allows ourselves to continually vibrate and bounce off of each other. And then you go day by day by day. And next thing you know, you have a long-term relationship, and that's called intimacy. But then you have other people where it just, you guys may not just see the world the same. And so since you don't see the world the same, it doesn't mean they're not fruitful in your life. It just means that they and you, who you guys are being at the moment, can only deal with each other for a certain amount of time at a time. And sometimes those people are your parents. And you don't get a break from them.
That fix your face. And
right.
That's how you learn to put the mask on.
Yes.
Don't you go outside crying, even though I was in here whooping your behind and chastising.
Because you don't have a choice when you have children and you have a parent.
Right.
It's God working. Like a mother and a child or a father and a child, like that's God's work. Everything else after God did his work, meaning bringing you through that portal, everything outside of that is left up to God is going to run this vehicle because it's connected to the rest of the earth. And you got to work on bringing in information. And all that is made up. That's all made up. So when we have kids and we're looking at a reflection of ourselves, and then our kid is just being all free and chilling and like, I'm a kid, and you start getting frustrated and angry.
Sit your ass down, go to the corner.
And you're like, how else is a person supposed to act other than themselves in a moment? It doesn't mean that you can't set up strategies, but you don't have to set up strategies angry and frustrated. But you're angry and frustrated because you were not intentional about your choices. When you decided to lay down and get in God's work and have sex, you weren't intentional about it. So whenever you came back to yourself, you wasn't ready. You wasn't ready for your most unhinged, unapologetic self to come back to the earth and be like, yo, I'm in here, son.
It's so crazy that you would even say that, is because, like, you know, and I don't even want to get into it because wait, I'm so glad he's here for a second, but real quick on sex.
Okay.
Sex can be low vibrational or high vibrational. And what's crazy is, in a low vibrational capacity, you can actually manifest the worst version of yourself, which is...
But hold up. Sex is not just intercourse. You and I are having sex right now. Because sex is just...
DW! I think you're shooting your porno now.
Yeah, it's like, we're having sex right now because all sex is just a unification of energy. Mm-hmm. And states of being when that unification comes and intentional. So you're going to manifest and create, whether you bring in the physical form of manifestation through seed to egg and coming through that space, or you're going to manifest through how you see the world and how you're having the experience in the next moment. So us having sex right now, we're producing our next moment. Mm-hmm. And then when we get our next moment come, we look at it and we're like, damn, either this shit is showing the best version of us, right, or it's showing a version of us that's reflecting our triggers. And this is where you find out whether you're in sync with somebody. And then our job is to get to know people, and the more intimate you become, then generally what happens is you start having sex, and you start manifesting yourself in the physical form. But you were already manifesting the moment that you met. If you're functioning like in a low vibrational capacity, then you're not. Then what's going to happen is you're not going to get to know the person fully because you're only about self. You're not about having sex. You're about intruding on another person. You're about getting what you want, what you need, rather than interacting in a relationship, being like, let me learn about this person. And so that way I can, and also learn about myself around them. How does Tiffany make me feel when I'm around her? Right, because if you can't be your authentic self around that person, why would you want to even go there? Because I don't even feel comfortable in this space. Right, I didn't judge myself for saying that. Why did you judge me? Oh, that lets me know that when you hear or see an expression of life outside of yourself, you can't handle it. So you get back into defending your reality as if both realities can't exist at the same time, because it takes mother and father. So that way they can come together and create something new of the same. So you need opposing forces. And when you interact with those opposing forces, you're able to unify what is on a vibrational frequency that you can resonate with, but you're also able to reconcile with aspects of yourself that you generally don't communicate with, like the light in the basement. And then from there, you can get good at what you generally don't dwell in often. And now you get to be more intimate with the person. Because now they become part of your growth process. You're part of their growth process. You become intimate. And then when you have intimacy, now it's like our next moment, through that vulnerability, through that openness, through that honesty, is we're giving birth to something that we can fully accept as our own. And then you can just hit different levels with it. Like, once you understand how this game works, when I got into relationship strategy over 15 years ago, it was like, that's when this clicked. I was like, oh, all relationships are a strategy. And when you strategize well, literally, you can manifest whatever relationship you want, as long as you get into, who am I being? How much am I going to allow that other person to be themselves around me? How much space are we going to hold for each other? Can they hold space for me to be myself? Can I hold space for them to be themselves? How do we nurture each other? And now, whatever we fantasize about, most likely that's going to come to fruition. But generally, what ends up happening, it ends up being so much better than you imagined, because you had all the limitations in your brain. So when I truly get to know you, Tiffany, I don't have to fantasize about you anymore. I can just truly get to know you. So then when we have sex, then it's like, no, not saying we are, but I'm just giving the analogy. No porno today. No porno, sorry. But when we have sex, now we're manifesting from a place of authenticity. So when we bring forth child, or if we bring forth finances, or if we bring forth forgiveness and healing through that sexual unification process on all levels, from the root to the crown, now when our children come back to us, we're not giving them reflections of our unease or disease. Or that trauma. We're giving them reflections of our greater selves, and now they get to be themselves, and now they get to fall into their natural artistic expression, and they're not so stressed out, and now they're experiencing, like, this is how you heal generational trauma. That's crazy. Okay, wait. So, real quick, let's recap to give folks, a couple tips on because we was rolling.
their shadow work.
Okay.
How to start the process of shadow work. What are some tips and tricks that a person can use?
So, as simple as possible, but definitely not a simple thing to do, is really get naked, bucket naked, and I've been using this for years. Get bucket naked. You can do it anytime, but preferably do it every morning.
Yeah, do it in the house. Don't be outside.
Yeah, not outside.
Right.
But, and I mean, this is by your lonely. This is by yourself. Give yourself the time and space for your own healing. That's the first thing. Give yourself the time and space for your own healing, meaning whatever you need to do in order to get yourself back to you, do it, no matter how much it hurts. Because that process is going to require you to detox a lot of things that you're addicted to.
And you're going to find yourself getting rid of people and places and things that no longer serve you. You're going to be like, oh man, I love my friend for 20 years or 15 years, but I can't do this no more.
And how you got to let it go. And how you know is anybody that you're connected to that gives you resistance to you saying authentically, I need to heal. They're not, and they give you resistance and they make it more about them. That's not love. Because anybody who loves you will be like, yo, what do you need for me to help you? Like, you need 3 or 4 months? You need a year? You need 2 years? Whatever you need, I'm here for you. Like, just let me know how I can best serve you. That's love. And if that takes you not being together anymore, this was something that, like, I had to reconcile with. Like, if it takes not being together anymore because I'm so addicted to the idea of you, now I got to be like, man, I got to get to who I am. And I can't do this constantly in this highly addictive state.
That is so...
I got to go through, like, the 12-step program of a human being because this person stimulates me so much. So, back to it. Time and space for your own healing. Next step is understand how God works. Like, start getting into nature. Like, get outside yourselves. Go walking. Go outside. Like, touch some trees. Go garden. Like, put your hands in the dirt. Like, understand how the things that you reap benefit from, how it works. Because when you go and connect yourself to the soil, when you ground yourself, and you start to pay attention to outside of you, you start to learn the outer workings. That is just another reflection of you, just in a different space. Like, when Mother Earth starts doing its thing, you're like, oh, the sun is hitting the ground, the soil, and the seed in the dirt, and the gravitation that pushes down. So when the seed breaks and it comes out the earth, how it grows thick and strong is from the gravitational push down. So it's going through resistance. So that means resistance is inevitable. You need resistance to grow. So when you start understanding how nature works, the meta nature, when you understand that, you're like, oh, now I know how I need to align myself with myself. I need to give myself forgiveness. I need to start having these unhealthy expectations of what things should be, and just know that resistance is inevitable and it's there to help me grow and expand. I can't be strong if I don't have resistance. So stop daydreaming about a world where everything goes my way and nothing happens to the polar opposite. Like, you got to understand how nature works. The balance, duality.
It's so funny, and I was
the law of correspondence.
I was looking this up.
This episode of Boardroom Savages is brought to you by Thrive Mortgage, the Reggie Graham team, in MLS number 240-34227. Are you looking to finance a home or commercial property, maybe refinance an existing mortgage? Contact the Reggie Graham team to discuss a mortgage solution to fit your needs. All loans are subject to underwriting and investor approval. Other restrictions may apply. This is not an offer of credit or a commitment to lend. Guidelines are subject to change. Visit thereggiegrahamteam.com or call 678-968-0444.
While you were talking, because it came straight to my mind. Matthew 6, and this is for my religious people, because also religion and spirituality is a balance. You have to know how to balance. You have people, some people are so religious that they lose the connection with spirituality. And you have some people that are so spiritual that they're like, I don't want to.
They're unbalanced.
They don't want nothing to do with religion, but it's a fine. If it wasn't for spirituality, I would not be able to understand religion at a higher level.
Right.
And Matthew 6, and it's funny because people are like, oh, you curse. God know my heart. He know I curse. Like, he know who I am.
You know your intentions.
Right. He knows me. Right. But it says, but if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today exists and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, won't he much more clothe you, O you of little faith? And it resonates that when I go out in nature and I look, and after reading this chapter for so many years, for it being a requirement on the Sabbath to read it, it clicked one day, and it was like, man, the birds eat, they live, they survive. This grass grows, it goes away every season, and it comes right back.
Right.
Source, the Most High, He gonna provide your needs. You gotta let this other stuff go. And
as if it's not coming back.
Right. It is.
Now you get in flow, you get in harmony.
Like, chill the hell out.
Yeah.
And when I started grounding myself, and it's so funny because this Asian lady, shout out to Wendy, I love her, I miss her, I gotta go see her. She used to do Falun Da Fang Hung in the park. And when she taught me that practice, it was like, okay, you gotta take your shoes off, get in the grass. And this is before I even knew about spirituality. It was like the Most High was setting me up for all of these little things. And then when 2022 happened and my heart broke, I had a heartbreak, it cracked me all the way open. And then it was like, okay, we really on a healing journey.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, I just started like, okay, I gotta do the work. Okay, I had to unpack all these negative attributes that I perceived in myself, and then also had to look at what was projections from other people, learning what a projection is.
Right.
Learning, like, is this really me, or is this someone who told me this is how I am? And that's really who they are. Like, I had to go back and evaluate every relationship, and this is a tip. Every relationship, like everything that I perceived to be extremely bad that happened to me, I had to sit down with it. From childhood trauma to adult betrayals to just shit I ain't like, and really unpack how did we get there, and be that bucket nakedness that he's talking about.
Bucket naked
is getting so honest and real with yourself and saying, okay, well, you did contribute to that.
Yeah. And what do you think the problem?
And then why? And then having a fine line of not letting, see, you ain't shit. That inner self-talk. The holding space for yourself to say, well, you didn't know.
You didn't know. Like, you know what you know. You are who you are. You be who you be. At every moment and every point of our lives. And we really, I would love, and that's the other tip, is once you create a sacred space for your own healing, like forgiveness of yourself for being a human being. Like, we're in here.
Earth is a school.
Right. And that's why they say forgiveness is for us, not for the other person. Because when you forgive yourself for being human, now you can empathize and sympathize with other people and be like, man, I understand why mom was moving that way. I understand why dad was moving that way based off of their life experience. And I forgive them because, shoot, I got to sit back and look at my lack of accountability where I wasn't intentional at a point in my life. It wasn't that I was trying to.
My voice wasn't intentional. Nothing. I was just living.
Right. And on top of that, it's not as, like, most people like to convince us that we are innately just horrible people. Like, with social media right now, when people be talking in this healing space, it's like the opportunity to allow everybody to be who they are and without it being so freaking horrible. Like, it's always like this demon, or it's always like when somebody did something to me. It's like they did something to me, not realize it's like, yo, they were trying to figure out themselves around you. And you did that to yourself. It could be physical. I'm not saying that there's no extreme cases, but let's just be honest. A lot of us are just growing up, being ourselves around each other, trying to figure out ourselves around each other, working of that growth process to remind ourselves of who we are again, because we forgot who we are from birth because we're constantly being conditioned from the time that we come through the portal. So we're a kid, knowing ourselves, bringing in information, and every single day we begin to forget who we are as we become more mature body-wise, but more kid-like mind-wise. And this is why we still throw temper tantrums well into our 40s and our 50s, mad. That other clip. That clip. So we got to give ourselves like deep forgiveness.
Children in whole adult bodies.
Yeah.
You're like, dude, seriously?
And that's lack of forgiveness. Because if I can't forgive myself for being who I am, then who are you to act like that around me? Like, I gotta point the finger at you. I have to judge you.
That's the self-centeredness. That's the narcissistic tendencies. That's all of those. Like,
and it's not really, it's tendencies. And like, I wanted to say that's humanity. Because when we start putting like narcissistic tendencies in it, the vibration in itself comes up as there's a human being out there that is just can't be reconciled with. Like, they just can't evolve. They can't grow. There's no way in the world that you can grow and evolve because narcissistic, I've given you this label, which means that you're not on a process. There's something wrong with you. And then everybody gets to sit there and label how much of a narcissist you are based off of how much I don't like seeing life expressed differently outside of myself.
And that's what he's saying is so true. I use this term a lot because I found out through extensive therapy, I did grow up in a house full of narcissists. But I didn't know who these people were. And also learning that really they're just unhealed.
Yes.
And
they're on one side of the spectrum.
That's you know what I'm saying? Yes, you can be like, oh my God, they're the devil. A lot of it is they went through their own childhood trauma that they didn't reconcile with, and then now they're at a point in their life where they just like, this is just who I am, and I'm going to continue to be who I am. And growing up in this environment, you know, I had to suppress a lot of who I was. Case in point, I was a kid who I got in trouble for telling the truth, and it was just like, shut up, don't say that. And it's like, why not? Like, he ain't shit. Like, right. I already knew, like, I would, like, certain people.
Because you had to learn mindfulness.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I would be, like, outed them out the babes. Like, it was what it was. It was like, y'all don't see this person? Y'all right. And because people are only looking at the mask, and if they, you know, as children, we're our purest self, they didn't see what I saw. They just saw me as, like, you're rude as hell as a child, only to come back 6 months later, like, how you know this person was a child? I can't tell you how I know.
Because as children, we can see inconsistency. Like, we're trying to work, like, our brain has little categories that we stick our experiences in. And then that's how our brain goes back to help us survive better. It's like, oh, if I experience this once, twice, 3 times, the brain is like, oh, okay, I can have some type of, it's not control, but I got some predictor that I can use to help me navigate because I need to survive as a human being. So as a kid, you're developing all these little categories. So you see some consistent behavior, and then you see what that consistent behavior is producing. And if you're conditioned that that behavior is bad through somebody else telling you it's bad, you're seeing somebody deposit in that bad section, and it's like, oh, he bad. You don't see that he bad, and everybody else is like, oh, hold on, baby. We forgot to tell you that the way humanity works is that the moment that we label something, now we start breaking up somebody's whole life experience in different sections of who they are. So then that's where suppression comes in, where it's like, I'm not going to be, it's like we got to figure out what is mindful about ourselves without being suppressive or oppressive to others. And that's the wisdom in life.
Listen, and suppressing of intuition, that was huge for me. Because I didn't understand energy. I didn't understand with that. You know, I wrote it down. The balancing of masculine and feminine energy. As human beings, we have both, and people think like men. Oh, he's a man because he gotta know how to balance that femininity, because that intuition is a huge part of it. And I suppressed it for so long because I would be like, oh, you tripping, Tiff. Oh, you
weren't being authentic.
You being hard on a person. I'm like, nah, this don't feel right. That's why you always looking at the bad, not understanding like, no, this was a God given on the inside.
Right.
This is
that you feel it now.
You gotta listen to this. You gotta unpack. Like shadow work was like I had to unpack
a lot of stuff. Yeah, and like what that looks like on like a biological level is like your amygdala, which handles your fight or flight. It's been shown to focus like 80% of itself towards negativity. It's like it's there to see negativity because that's where our survival mechanisms come in. So it's got to be very acute and aware of things that we perceive as threats. Now, whenever we're talking about seeing or labeling or, you know, looking at other people and how they're behaving and stuff like that, we got to almost like recondition or look or ask the right questions. So really it's like we say it's intuition, but really what it is I'm feeling something about you, and when I'm around you and I'm feeling something, why am I feeling this way? Because not everybody's going to feel the same way around you that I do. And sometimes we talk about intuition, it's this thing like that person is that frequency all the time with everybody and say, oh, my intuition knew this about you. But really all intuition is, it's you having an acute awareness of how you feel about yourself around a person. It has nothing to do with them. And when you ignore that intuition, now what ends up happening is you're not able to set proper intentions because you may interact with a person without asking more questions, so that way you can gain more information. Yeah, you got to ask.
I had to learn butterflies was not a good thing. I did. I had to learn butterflies wasn't a good thing.
Well, it depends on how you look at it. Because all it is a challenge. Like, I've had butterflies on stage speaking in front of like thousands of people, and I've had butterflies in front of women and I ain't know nothing about. I've had butterflies about, you know, a lot of different things on different levels, and good and bad, because your fight or flight, that's just another representation of that is predator or prey. So whenever you're in your predatory state, you're seeking. So if I'm seeking to accomplish something, I'm seeking to speak in front of somebody and it's new, I've never done it before, I'm going to get that same feeling that I got whenever I am running from something that I don't ever want to experience. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's for us to reconcile which end of the spectrum I'm going to put myself in. Mm-hmm. Like, how am I going to understand what I'm feeling? And when I talk about intuition, it's like being able to say is, hey, Tiff, I don't know what it is. I got to ask some more questions. I got butterflies around you. Mm-hmm. Like, there's something about you that got me feeling a certain type of way. I don't want to start fantasizing or creating ideas based off of my own voice, but I would just like to sit with you and ask more questions and get to know each other, so that way I can find out truly what it is about you that's drawing me to you.
It's funny that you said that, because that goes back to being your authentic self and being comfortable enough to be like, all right, I'm not going to judge you. Let's just talk.
I'm not going to judge me either.
Right. Let's ask 5 more questions, and maybe we could either clear this up, or that 5 more questions is going to make me determine, like, I need boundaries with you.
Right.
And this is how I can accept, I can put in place healthy boundaries. Because
I just need to pause on it for a minute.
One thing that I had learned about myself is, Lex don't like labels, but high introvert.
I do in certain cases.
And being in my season of solitude. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people that I know, they're cool with it. And then some people are like, why? And it's like, I need that time to...
This episode of Boardroom Savages is brought to you by the Joe Reyes Insurance Agency at Country Financial. As you work through life, you may find you need to protect what you value most. Whether that's your business, home, auto, or loved ones, Joe Reyes at Country Financial has a solution for you. As a Country Financial insurance agent, Joe Reyes is prepared to help you with insurance options to protect what and who you love. Visit joedoesinsurance.com or call 770-967-3190.
That basement had a lot of shit in it. Right. It is what it is. Like, right. I very rarely went down there, maybe not even once every 5 years. Like, it started piling up, and I need that time. I need that space to really just be like, oh, this is why you did this. Right. Oh, this is why you did that. Oh, this is what happened as a child. Like, I had to forgive myself as a child for things I couldn't control. Right. So when my mom, inflicted trauma, and it wasn't even intentional. I had to learn that she was just being herself, but then also understanding where she had came from. It was like, okay, well, as a child, you couldn't control what none of the adults did to you in your environment or around you.
But you tried.
Right. Well, if I be good, or if I do this, if I do that, and that, you become a people pleaser, and okay, are you happy now? To everybody, right. And being a child of a person who had the border personality tendencies, the narcissistic, growing up in this environment, that people pleasing is, okay, if I just put this mask on and sit here like a really, really good girl, everybody's going to be happy. And then they're happy for a few minutes, and then the next thing you know, it's like an all-out brawl around you, and then you're a child trying to contain it.
Can we build on that real quick? So, you listen.
All right, see y'all. I'm trying to. He will be back again.
So let's talk about real quick.
He will be back again. I just want y'all to know that.
Let's talk about throat chakra. And when we talk about having, and this was something that I had to do my work so I could really understand that energy that's being clogged up from childhood when you're not able to express yourself and ask the proper questions. So whenever you grow up and you're dealing with adults or children in adult form, because when you're a kid, somebody that's 19 years old looks so big. You don't understand that they're 19 and 20. You just understand that that's your superior right now. That's who's taking care of you. Whatever you know taking care of is, you're surviving, that's your God. And so whenever we are growing up and we're watching behavior and we're trying to categorize it and put it in certain boxes and make sense of things so that way we can survive, and we start asking questions. And I'm asking mom and dad or whoever a question, and they're like, that challenge of how dare you ask me about my behavior that I never was intentional about or I never thought of, or I can't really give you an in-depth understanding of why you see me do this, baby, because I've never looked at my own behavior in that fashion. So now it's like, don't you dare ask me the questions. And now I'm connected with you. I'm your child. I love you. And it doesn't, and every time you get angry at me or you fuss at me for being me, I feel that connection gets severed. And every time it gets severed, it creates scar tissue. And so I come into life loving you authentically. You now give me reasons not to love you authentically, because every time I come to you and ask questions about you, you just give me a verbal thrashing and tell me to be quiet. And if you want my love, don't you ever challenge me. Don't you ever tell me about myself. Don't you ever tell me to explain why I've done this inconsistent behavior, and I'm always telling you not to do it, and I'm not explaining to you why my behavior and what I'm telling you to do doesn't make sense.
All of
so,
these,
listen,
do as I say,
do
not
as I do.
All of these
Right.
things from childhood, you like, lady, you just. My mother's advice to not do drugs was don't try it, you might like it. I was like, who tells an 8-year-old
the
this?
truth. She told you the truth.
Right, but as an adult, now I'm like, God damn, that was the realest advice
ever. She told you the truth. And so now...
The damn commercial showed me all this, champion showed me all this, and don't try it.
You might like it.
And it was like...
Oh, dang.
I thought she was the worst person ever, and then like years later in my adulthood, I'm like, God damn,
right.
that is right.
Right, so, throat chakra. When you grow up underneath those conditions, now you've conditioned yourself to oppress speaking and asking questions for clarity. Mm-hmm. So since you now oppress yourself asking questions for clarity because you don't want to rock the boat or you don't want to sever that good connection, that dopamine connection you have with that person, now when you meet somebody and you get them butterflies, and I'm like, dang, Tiff, like, you cracking concretes around here, like, and you got me feeling a certain type of way. And I want to get to know you more, because if I just rest everything on how you make me feel in the moment, I don't know if that's my lower self or my higher self expressing itself to you. And because I have more love for myself and I honor myself, I'm careful with what I ingest and the type of things that I'm around. So I need to ask you more questions. And I need not to be afraid for you to say, I don't like being asked questions, so I can't be around you. And now I never get to exercise that initial dopamine that I was building on. It's like, dang, man, she was bad. I would have loved it, but I didn't mess around and ask her some questions and found out that she's not comfortable with who she is yet. So this is how your intuition can help you select the proper people in your life, because you ask questions. But you can't ask questions if your throat chakra's clogged up, because you've been taught your whole life not to ask questions to rock the boat, and now you're just yearning for a connection, and so you learn not to rock the boat in that connection. So now I don't want to ask difficult questions to somebody.
Because I don't want to rock the boat, and I want to people please, and I don't want that person to leave.
And because I want to connect myself to that dopamine, that fantasy I have of you, Tiffany. Because once I saw you, really it was the authentic idea that went off in my head that made my nervous system respond. That gave me butterflies.
I had a guy friend tell me, and this is my homeboy forever in a day, and you know. Good looking fella, you know, 6'5", you know, he is.
This is how you sugarcoat he's fine.
Right?
Just say he's fine.
He is fine.
There you go. Fine. All right, gotcha. Let everybody else.
That's my homeboy. And I would like ask him questions, you know, from a guy's perspective, and then be like, well, if you know all this, you know, you can have all the women. He said, Tiff, they like the idea of me.
The idea.
And I never understood until like years later, and he repeated it again. He was like, she ain't like me. She just like the idea of me. And I was like,
yeah.
Really?
Yo, let me tell you,
and
I used to say this, like, I understood this when I started. I always remember because I started writing one of my books. But I said, like, everybody loves the idea of Lex Kelly, but they ain't never had to pick up my drawers. And it's like, and I said that because, you know, married at the time, it was like my wife has to experience all of me. You get to experience the guy on camera or on stage or, you know, breaking down A, B, C, and D. And true, that's not an illusion. That's truly who I am. But there's other aspects of me that might stimulate different parts of you that you never will ever experience. So you now fall in love with the upsides and ignore the downsides. You become a predator, not prey. So now you're imbalanced. That's all it is your brain. You're more in your prefrontal cortex. You're more in your creative executive centers. So you're not, but universe requires balance. So something is going to show up to show the polar opposite to bring you back to balance, so I'm not aggrandizing you. So when I see you, Tiff, the first thing I'm going to do is aggrandize you. I'm going to put you on a pedestal. Because all I see is the upside.
You pick them drawers up.
And then it's like, you know what? And then I get mad and frustrated at you.
Right.
The first time I hear you fart, and I'll be like, dang, what you... I'm mad at you for farting in front of me. And you like, who told you I didn't fart?
I fart. I fart. So if you like the idea of me,
you gotta handle the fart.
You gotta handle the farts. I do not believe in hurting my stomach.
For anybody.
And holding it in. I will roll the window down. I will say, excuse me.
Right.
But Tiff is not holding in her farts.
So you gotta take all of me.
And I smell like a trucker when I do fart. I'm just saying.
Like straight smoothies.
I eat my fruits and vegetables. It's very good, clean eating over here. Don't come to me with no fantasy.
Straight
don't look
kale.
at this and be like, oh no. She fart. I will be like, I'm going to have a weekend. I take my poops on a regular basis.
Right.
So for all you men out there, I don't want my woman farting.
Yo,
she gonna have stomach cancer, pass out because she holding it in.
For you, so that way you can keep your idea.
No.
So to go back to those things we talked
about. I'll fart now. But I will spare Lex Kelly because I would
appreciate that.
And the door closed.
Right. You got me locked in here looking at me.
He's gonna pass out, y'all. He's gonna pass out.
Stone, give me that stone face like you know what I just did, right?
Yes.
That was me. So, sacred space, forgiveness of self, and humility. Because when you forgive yourself, you also forgive others, and you're humble to the fact that you are who you are in your space, your time and space right now with the level of awareness, and everybody is too. So now, once you're into that space of forgiveness, you get into that tapping into your divine intuition. Meaning, all that is like, be real with yourself. Like, understand that this is a feeling. Stop hiding from the feeling. Stop being ashamed of the feeling because it comes from a thought process that hit your brain first, but you ignored it because you judged it. So that very first thing that hits your brain first, that's your most authentic expression. Oh shit, she fine. I can't deny that, but I can reconcile with it and then create balance and say, but she fart though. Can I stand the rain?
I have a great conversation. I have a lot of positive attributes.
Sunny days, everybody loves them. But tell me, baby, can you stand the rain?
Exactly. Can you take me when I'm not as nice, when I'm moody? You know, when the Scorpio said it, and I be on bullshit.
Right. But really, how that no self-sacrifice. So how that balances out with that is, if I know that whenever you're in those spaces, you understand you're in those spaces, and the other person doesn't. You have a responsibility to set intentions to make sure you don't change the frequency of the stuff around you because you manifest in that space. Don't shit where you eat. So now if you're in your moon cycle or you're dealing with something, you talk about it.
Right. I need a few days. It's not you. It's me.
I'm dealing with things. And if you're around somebody who where you're expressing full love, you can be authentic about it right up front, and they can help you process it because you're not pointing a finger at them like it's their fault that you got void issues. You can just say, man, I'm feeling like disconnected. I don't feel connected right now. And my brain wants to tell me it's because you're not doing more of an expectation. But I know that's not true. It has nothing to do with you.
That's a lot of maturity. That's a lot.
This is because you have to heal.
This is why damn Israelites stayed in the wilderness for 40 years instead of the 7 days because they was really around the corner from where they were supposed to be. That's really what it is.
This
it's
is
like,
healing.
That
this is
entire
shadow work.
Journey,
yes.
Because if I don't go outside in nature, I start acting real weird.
Yes.
I gotta get
moving energy.
If I'm right, it's an entire process. And one of the things that I want to end on the shadow work that I don't want to forget is releasing of people, places, and things and surrendering during your shadow work. Like Lex said, the idea that we have of people, the idea we have of our parents, the idea that we have of our friends, the idea that we have of our job, the idea that we have of our significant other. Releasing those ideas and surrendering them to the person who in front of me, that's really who they are. Like, one of the biggest things that I've learned is let people do what they want to do so they can show you what they rather do. I don't believe I had to learn control, like, just sit back and, oh, you wanted to do that? Okay, now I can reconcile with myself, like he said, with that idea of what this was with us. This is what you would rather do, and that just doesn't align with what I got going on. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. Just doesn't align with what I got going on.
Why can't that blend?
It depends on the boundary.
It depends on the boundary.
Because if he's smoking crack, that's
something we can't
do.
Like, listen, because it has consequences that be having stuff missing.
Now you got no TV.
Right. And
how you get the TV off the wall? How you get the TV off the wall? It took 4 people to put the TV on the wall.
And you did it one. You was by yourself.
Right. We can't.
Right. So you figure out where your line is. And this is what I think is really important to leave off on, is because it's really like I like to leave people with the how. And when you're going through that potential, what you're talking about, releasing of ideas of people and really reconciling to why you have expectations of people and why they have to fit a certain type of way. If you can do that first before you actually release the person themselves, because most people in their healing process, they just isolate. And we need human connection. But part of the reason why the people around you...
This episode of Boardroom Savages is brought to you by Thrive Mortgage, the Reggie Graham team, in MLS number 240-34227. Are you looking to finance a home or commercial property, maybe refinance an existing mortgage? Contact the Reggie Graham team to discuss a mortgage solution to fit your needs. All loans are subject to underwriting and investor approval. Other restrictions may apply. This is not an offer of credit or a commitment to lend. Guidelines are subject to change. Visit thereggiegrahamteam.com or call 678-968-0444.
Feeling that way is because you are not looking at their fruit, because you were in that expectation mode. So you're cutting off so much of them that you can gain nutrients from, but you're blocking it because you have expectations and you're only focusing on the part of them that show up in the way that you want them to show up. But when you release
what about the people pleasing?
That's what I'm saying. So the people pleasing is strictly towards usually the beginning stages, when you're not asking questions. And when you're not asking questions, you don't know anything. And the reason why you're not asking questions is because you don't want to rock the boat. And the reason why you don't want to rock the boat is because in your past, you've seen where people got angry or frustrated, and you don't want that to happen. So that's the people pleasing. I feel like by not asking questions, I'm going to prevent you from a potential angry at me, from a potential disappointed at me for asking you these deep questions.
Or choosing willful blindness too. Like, I may not want to know, so I don't want to ask. Don't ask, don't tell.
Don't ask, and I don't ask because if I ask, I will possibly lose connection to you. And my idea is I'm only with you to run off that idea. I need to see what that idea look like. And I don't want to jack that up. Men go through this all the time. We ignore so much.
I'm glad you said
and
that.
And women.
Yes.
Because it's like, we don't ask the right question.
Crazy as hell.
But that ass, though.
Yeah.
God, like that ass, though, got me not...
crazy as hell.
Like, and y'all see, and the crazy thing is, women, y'all see when we can't get our life together around y'all. Y'all see where we can't think right. We nervous. We trying to, like, everything's chaotic. Nothing's consistent because that ass, though, it got us. We're so high on dopamine.
And the other side, women falling in love with potential. But he could be so much more.
Right. Not more of you, not more of him. So we don't ask questions, and there's no way in the world that, because I don't run into people that often that make me feel that way, especially if you're a picky person like me, if my throat chakra is closed, there's no way in the world, or my people pleaser, there's no way in the world that I'm about to rock that boat to where you might let me see what that thing do.
Right.
I am not rocking that boat.
Right.
Matter of fact, what do you want me to do?
Right.
That's outside of my natural behavior pattern.
And then eventually it blows up.
And then it blows up. Now you mad because I wasn't courageous enough to be authentic about who I was, because you had me reflecting the version of me that I'm a dope addict to that ass. Damn. So now I didn't mess around and created a situation to where I end up being authentic. And now you mad because you get a different version of me than how I showed up, because all I was doing was following your cues.
Meeting that representative.
But I've learned you got to ask the right questions. And when you just are okay with this may not be a thing, and how I know it's not a thing is because when I ask the questions, I found out how you respond to deep questions about yourself. And I found out how much you didn't really pay attention to yourself. And I found out how much you really haven't done any self-reflection. And you're not really focused on personal growth.
She's an earhead. She's
fine. She got she got all kinds of ideas and beliefs, but never questioned any of them. So when I ask her questions about how that worked, all she do is get defensive rather than actually help me break down how she actually thought that was going to work in nature when it broke 8 universal laws. Like what you just said broke at least the most important universal laws, which is the universal law of oneness. Everything is connected. So how are you over here separating stuff as if those two things don't vibrate on the same frequency?
I always said, even when I dealt with different people, if you can explain to me your thought process, I could get past a lot of shit. Because it's like, even though you was dead wrong, but you was like, hey.
But were they in their world?
In their world.
They right.
Right, they're right. Good point. But like, we're talking about the breaking of universal laws.
Right.
Like, okay.
But they don't know that.
You done shot somebody.
Right.
Let's just go there. Let's go all the way out there. And you're able to explain to me, well, I was getting out my car, this person tried to attack me, and that was self-defense.
Right.
And you're able to articulate it, then it's like, I don't look at you as a murderer. I look at you as somebody who had to protect and defend your home.
Right.
And unfortunately, this is the consequence of that situation. So for me, it goes back to the throat chakra and the communication. Explain to me why you did this.
Right. And
this is why you did this.
And I'm not resistant about telling you because I'm so authentic and open. And because I'm authentic and I'm open and I'm courageous, now it allows us to have greater intimacy and the relationships stay together anyway. You ain't got to fantasize no more. You
right, tell me. I want to know the words.
That's intuition.
Yeah, tell me. But some people don't know what questions to ask. They don't know how to ask them.
Because you ain't asked the right questions to yourself.
Right, they don't. Well,
you find out all the questions to ask, and this is what healing is about. Like anybody, listen, let me put you on something. Anybody who says they're a healer, they are going to be able to express very clearly about who they are and then how they got themselves. In my experience of being around some phenomenal healers, oh, I'm so blessed. They don't tell me other people's stories. And this was part of my journey. When I was on this space, there would be parts of my story would be other people's story. Rather than just sitting in me like, this is my story. This is how I healed from it. And now I can show you the production. And then also I can show you how this is in alignment and homeostasis with the universe. Because I took the time to understand me and know God. Know thyself, know God. And I can understand how I'm a mirror of the all, the oneness. And I understand that synchronicity. So because I understand that, all I got to do is tell you about my experience, how I got through, how I healed it. And I don't feel bad about it because I know it works because it's rooted in nature. So that's why I said, get in nature. Understand how nature works. Understand how plants grow. Understand how you can have a big old, if on a macro, you can have a big old area full with red roses. They're all red. And they all look the same, but when you go in, you find out how uniquely different they are.
They are.
But they're coming from the same stem or the same, they're coming from, everything's the same. From the ground all the way up to the top flower. When you understand that process, you understand you. When you understand you, you release the idea that other people need to be more like you because you honor your own uniqueness. So therefore, you honor their own uniqueness.
And you don't compare yourself.
And now you just express and learn and grow and expand and like, oh, there's somebody that's polar opposite of me. They're there to teach me a lesson about what's opposite of me.
And the ego tells you it's something wrong with them.
Right.
And
because we're looking for comfort and we got to find out
that learning that we came with our childhood when your childhood was conditioning. Now your adulthood is unlearning all that stuff and really just now this is who
it's
you
the
are.
Releasing. It's the
very few parents can sit back and be like, I'm just going to let my child be themselves. Very few parents can do that.
Because they don't know the difference between a child being themselves and then how to get their child to integrate into a system that's socially acceptable by somebody else that ain't got nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you. So that's why we all say how we should raise our children, but if you go into each individual household, you get a whole bunch of differences of the same, and all of it's dysfunctional for the most part, because it's not authentic to the child. Our school system is not authentic to the children. We go into that whole thing.
That's going to be the next discussion, healing discussion with Lex. So, guys, he will be back again. Yes, he's coming back. We have, I promise.
You gonna come on my show?
Yes, I am, because we could be here all day.
Man, we go in.
We could go in. We could be here all day. But this segment of healing discussions with Lex Kelly. Listen. If it doesn't apply, please let it fly. Take what resonates, leave the rest. Hopefully you take it all in and we've given you something that can change your perspective, open up your thought process and for you to come back and see what else we're talking about. Now,
if it doesn't resonate, don't debate.
Okay, I like that. And also, if you like my vibes, please like, share, and subscribe. And listen, boardroomsavages.com so you can watch the full episode. And Peace, love, and baby chickens, guys. Ciao.
Peace.
It's a wrap. All right, we got
with the universe. Had to do it with myself first. The universe. Fell in love with the universe. Tapped in with the universe. Had to do it with myself first.